Okay, so the recording has begun. I'll begin with the session now. Jai Shree Ram, everyone. Welcome to the third episode of our series, Quest for Truth Mysteries of Ancient India. Now, here we journey through India's ancient epics, philosophies, and traditions to uncover their timeless wisdom and the relevance in today's world. In the first episode, we explored the Mahabharata, delving into its integrated lessons on dharma, karma, and leadership. Our second episode took us into the heart of bhakti, the transformative power of devotion, and how it united communities and inspired resilience through the ages. Now, today we step in the world of Valmiki Ramayana, the Adi Kavya, or the first epic to unravel the profound teachings and the timeless relevance. Now, the Valmiki Ramayana is not just a story, it's more of a treasure trove of wisdom that has shaped the moral and spiritual fabric of India for centuries. Today, we'll explore why the Valmiki Ramayana is considered the original and the most authentic account of Lord Ram's journey, the epic's unique insights into human emotions, dharma, and leadership, answer to common questions like why Sri Ram spoke harshly to Sita Ma, whether Ravan was truly a scholar, and whether what his 10 heads actually symbolized. The background of Valmiki Ramayana. Our sage Valmiki, known as the Adi Kavi, composed the Valmiki Ramayana thousands of years ago. The Sanskrit epic is the foundation of Ramayana tradition, portraying Lord Ram not only as the divine figure but also as the ideal, humble human being. It is revered for its honesty, depth, and ability to address complex dilemmas. To have this session, I'd like to introduce our esteemed speaker, Yashodeep Deodhar sir, a graduate of IIT Bombay in Mechanical Engineering and IIM Ahmedabad for postgraduate management. Yashodeep sir has an exceptional career, including working as a consultant with McKinsey and Company and founding Direct Petroleum Services. For the past 6 years, Sir has dedicated himself to researching the Valmiki Ramayana in its original Sanskrit form with a mission to reconnect India's today's youth with the profound teachings. His storytelling and deep understanding of the epics makes him not only one of the few people in the country who can narrate. The epics make him one of the few people in the country who can narrate the Ramayana in a way that resonates with the modern minds. Yashodeep sir, I'll just like to point out the questions that a student have asked about Valmiki Ramayana, like why it is considered as the ultimate source of wisdom compared to other versions. What do events like Agnipariksha signify in the context of Dharma? Was Ravan actually a genius or a flawed character driven by his ego? Or should we interpret the Ramayana literally, or does its meaning lie in the deeper symbolism? We are very eager to hear your insight on these questions and more, as well as the enlightening videos and the fact that you have prepared for us. Over to you, sir.
Thank you very much. Thank you for inviting me and for this session. And the title is very interesting. I'm glad to address this title. Your series is called Quest for Truth. And so let's dive in and find the truth about the Ramayana. See, we are all familiar with the story of Ramayana, but still there are so many questions. And you raised some of these right now. And when we have a question about the Ramayana, the reference text, the Praman is the Valmiki Ramayana. So today we will talk about what Maharishi Valmiki has said and find out the truth. And to get this, during this session, I will give some commentary. We will have Q&A and we'll see some videos as well. But to start this off, let me see with the group that is here right now what we think about the Ramayana. So, Shreyansh, can you put up a poll? I want to ask the question: is the Ramayana a true story? Is it fact or is it fiction?
Okay,
Or is
guys.
it something that we don't know?
Yeah.
So, people
S-
can have three choices: fact, fiction, or don't know.
okay, guys. Go in the activity section, and there you will find a poll, and there you will find the question: do you think Ramayana is a fact or a fiction? Give your answers.
Can I see how the scoring is going? Can you put it live?
Just a second, sir.
I see some responses in the chat. People are
Yes, sir.
saying it's.
So you will have to go in the activity section, and there will be one polls.
Do I have access to that?
Yes, sir. In the right bottom corner, sir, the
Yeah,
fourth
yeah, yeah.
button,
Activities. Yeah,
and there'll be polls.
yeah. Okay. All right, guys, we'll close this in just a few seconds, but I know there are more attendees than answers right now. So, those who have not answered, just go ahead and click. There is, just whatever you think, it will give us some basis for discussion.
In the bottom right corner of your screen, guys, there is the fourth button, activities. When you go there, you'll find an option polls, and you can go and click on the poll, and you can vote for your answer.
Okay, Shreya, should
Yes,
we
sir.
close it?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, we've got
Yeah,
a good
I think
sense.
more than enough have more than half the
Yeah,
audience has felt.
yes. We've got a good sense, and I think what I clearly see is, overwhelming number of people are saying it is fact. Some say, very few are saying it is fiction, and a few more are saying can't say. All right. Now, like I said, if we have a question about the Ramayana, the reference text is the Valmiki Ramayana. So let us see on this question what the Valmiki Ramayana says. So Maharshi Valmiki has said right at the beginning that he is writing the biography of a person. This is a true story, what he is writing. Well, I'm telling you what is mentioned. Okay. So he's saying the second verse is this Kon Vasmin Sampratam Loke Gunavan Kascha Viryavan Dharmadnyascha Pritadnyascha Satyavakyo Dridavratah. The first phrase, Kon Vasmin Sampratam Loke, who in the world lives today? That is the question he's asking. And he says, who has the following qualities? And afterwards, he uses the word Nar. So he is asking about a real person. Also, afterwards, Maharishi Valmiki says that what he is writing is itihas. Iti ha asa means that is how it happened. Okay. So, as far as the text is concerned, he's writing a true story, he's writing itihas, and it is a biography of a real person who lived at the same time as Maharishi Valmiki lived. So, Sampratam means at the same time. So, they were contemporaries. Maharishi Valmiki and Shree Ram lived at the same time, as is written in the Valmiki Ramayana. Okay, all right. So this is as far as Now I will ask the second question, because many times there is some confusion about the Vanaras. Who were the Vanaras? Were they humans or monkeys or Neanderthals? If they were humans, were they a different race? Also, a lot of people have different opinions. So once again, to get started, why don't you put up that poll and we'll see how it goes. We'll keep it simple: monkeys or humans. Do we have a third choice?
Yes, sir. I have mentioned primitive tribe as well.
See, we can't make it overlapping, right? So humans, primitive tribes, just say Neanderthals, so which is not humans, right? Some people. So can you make the third choice as Neanderthal?
Oh, okay. Sir. Cannot edit it right now, but guys, okay, consider primitive tribe as Neanderthals right now, for now. What do you actually understand by primitive tribe, guys?
No,
Because
no. See, if you put it up afterwards, if there's no way to edit, all right. I mean, as long as we are very clear that we are talking of non-human Neanderthal kind of tribe.
guys, again, you can see in the bottom right corner of your screen the fourth button, that is the activities button, and when you click on that, you'll find a section polls. The second poll you will be finding there.
Okay, we should have at least as many votes as we had for the first question.
Yeah.
All right. So if you voted for the first one, please do vote for the second one. And if you don't know, take the best pick or say none of the above. Or, if you don't know, even if you can guess, take a guess so that we have as many votes. All right. Stan, should we close?
41 votes have been there.
Almost
16
the
are
same.
saying
Okay,
monkeys.
no, some more people are voting. So hold on. Let's. This one is split more. See, in the first question, most people had said it's a fact, overwhelming majority. Now, monkeys and Neanderthals or primitive tribes is almost the same. Some are saying humans also, or none of the above. Okay, we can close this. It gives us enough of a sense. There is somebody who has said those who have watched season one know the answer, which is good. But the point I want to make is see, even in such a well read group like yours, well educated group like yours, there is no consistency. People have different points of views, which is what Shreyanshu was saying earlier as well, that there is a lot of confusion. Now, if you consider the two questions together, see, first we said that this is fact. And now, so many of you are saying that the Vanaras were monkeys. So I won't ask this, this is not a question for the poll, but I'll just pose it to you. If they were monkeys, then how come they were talking? You know, अगर वो बंदर थे तो बात कैसे करते थे? और अगर ये सत्य कथा है, आप कह रहे हो कि ये सत्य कथा है, it is fact, then how did Hanumanji, Angad, Vali, Sugriv, Tara, all of them were speaking? Again, it's a question, right? Which means that we have to understand this better. If they were humans, of course, yes, they could talk, right? Now, one more thing I want to you had asked me earlier, Shreyansh, in some of the questions that you had sent, that whether the Valmiki Ramayana should be taken literally, उसको शब्दशः ले या उसमें अतिशयोक्ति है. So let us dive into that question. See, we said that Valmiki ji has said that this is itihas. Itihasa means that is how it happened. But then, if you look further, the definition of itihas is this: Dharmartha kama mokshanam upadesha samanvitam purvavrittam kathayuktam itihasam prachakshate. First line, Dharmartha kama mokshanam upadesha samanvitam. That which gives us upadesh or direction on dharma, artha, kama, moksha, right? Any useful pursuit in life. Okay, that is the first part. The second part is important. Purva vrittam, that which has happened in the past, जो पहले हो चुका है. But katha yuktam, that which is told in story format, is called itihas. So, itihas, usually we read history only as facts, right? On this date, this war happened. On this date, something else happened. But itihas, as told by Maharshi Valmiki, is yes, Purvavrittam, but Kathayuktam, told in story format. Now, can we take, still some people say, can we take whatever Maharshi Valmiki has said literally? To this, I will give you one incident. And since you're all from IIT, you will find this interesting that Maharshi Valmiki is talking of some large numbers. I'll tell you the exact shlok. Shatam shatasahasranam koti mahurmanishinam. 100 of 100,000 is 1 koti, 1 crore, correct? 10 raised to the power 7, he's saying. Then he says 100,000 of 1 koti is some other number. So 10 raised to the power 12, he's defining that number. And he keeps on defining these numbers up to 10 raised to the power 60. 10 raised to the power 60, by the way, 1 trillion is 10 raised to the power 12. Correct? Now, what is the context in which he is describing this? That is interesting. So, you are all broadly familiar. with the story. This comes towards the end. Koti, by the way, somebody is saying Koti is 10 raised to the power 64. No, that is not correct. 1 crore of 1 crore is 10 raised to the power 7 of 10 raised to the power 7, 10 raised to 14, not 10 raised to 64. Okay. So the context is this, that the Vanar Sena has crossed over the Setu, and Ravan realizes that he has clearly underestimated how many Vanaras have come. And so he sends his spies to find out how large is the army and who are the leaders and what are they advising. So basically, he sends the spies to find out more about the Vanar army. And when the spies come back, this is the answer that they give. That they say, first of all, they say that, 100,000, 100 or 100,000 is 1 crore. They define up to 10 raised to power 60. And then they say the Vanaras are much more in number than that. Now, if you look at the total surface area of the earth, and you assume that one Vanar will assume it's not possible, but even then you just say 1 square foot is required. And what is the radius of the earth, and calculate the surface area of the earth. Ignore all the water content also. Even that surface area is not enough to accommodate so many Vanaras. Why just that? All the planets of the solar system are not enough to accommodate so many. Not just that, 1 trillion Earths are also not enough. So and point is, you cannot take this literally. Clearly, there is an exaggeration here. Atishayokti. Purvavrittam kathayuktam. So yes, it is told in story format. You cannot take this literally. There is another exaggeration where Kumbhakarna is told to be a giant, very large. How large? So when Ravan's people go to wake up Kumbhakarna, they first try to shout his name, they beat drums, shankh bajate hain, he doesn't get up. Then they pull his hair, they try to hit him with a gada, he doesn't wake up. Finally, Valmiki says, 1,000 elephants ran up and down his body. Okay, now 1,000 elephants, if you calculate the distance, and another time when he has given his height, he says his height is equal to 600 bows kept side to side. 600 bows. If you say 5 feet to a bow, that's 3,000 feet. So you're talking of, 3,000, nearing a kilometer in size. Clearly an exaggeration. Because if he was that large in size, how would he enter Ravan's palace? How can anyone speak to him? And so on and so forth. I just gave you these 2 examples to show you that, yes, parts of it cannot be taken literally. There is an exaggeration. But which part, it becomes quite clear when you actually read it. So, getting into the text is very important. And with that, now we will actually get into the text. And let us play one episode, which is the time that Shree Ram is about to be crowned Yuvraj. But we know that it doesn't play out like that. But let us look at that episode. That is season 2, episode 1.
This is Valmiki Ramayana, Season 2, Episode 1, Succession Plan. Previously in the Balakand, Valmiki told us about Ayodhya, the greatest and the grandest city in the world, Dashrath's longing for an heir, and his yajna. We heard about Ram's birth, how Vishwamitra later mentored him during their travels, and finally Ram's exploits with the Shivadhanush and his marriage to Sita. Many moons passed. Age was beginning to catch up with Dashrath. He felt that the time had come to hand over the responsibility of the empire. For years I have been devoted to the welfare of the people. I am now weary and am finding it difficult to carry on this heavy burden of duty. Jeernasyasya sharirasya Vishrantim abhirochaye. I feel his body has become old and needs some rest. And of course, there was no one better placed to succeed him than Ram. Why Ram? Ram had already demonstrated through his conduct as a prince that he was the most qualified candidate for this role in every respect. Valmiki says, "In archery there is no one who can match him. He is an expert in leading and commanding the troops. Yada vrajati sangramam na vijitya nivartate." Whenever he goes into battle, he never returns without defeating the enemy. He is a great warrior in every way. In fact, the greatest of them all. And though he is overwhelmingly mighty, he is never proud of his strength. On taxation and administration, ayakarmanyupayadnyas sandrashta vyayakarmavit. He knows the right means of generating revenue for the state and the right way of expending the resources. On people skills, in demeanor and speech, he is always pleasant, mrudupurvam. He is ever grateful to those who have done a single good deed, but does not carry the grudge of even 100 offenses. He is highly adept at attracting and retaining the right individuals, and in controlling or removing those who create problems. He is most persuasive in debates and discussions, taking people along and not demanding subservience. And with regards to what we call extracurricular activities, Vaiharikanam Shilpanam Vidnyata. He is an expert in the instruments used for entertainment and sport, and is proficient in music too. Ram is always righteous, true to his word, and free from envy. He possesses a sound character with forbearance, gentleness, and a sense of gratitude. He has attained control over his senses. In the first two sargas of the Ayodhya Kand, Valmiki has described in fascinating detail why Ram was the right choice to succeed Dashrath. It is also amazing that such an ancient poet analyzed his character in so many ways. He talks about Ram's physical presence, how he exuded power and grace at the same time. He also mentions some very interesting behavioral traits. For instance, Ram would go up to people and initiate a conversation and not rely on his stature and wait for them to come up to him. And from these lengthy descriptions, if we are to distill the essence of Ram, the Prince of Ayodhya, it is this. Everything that he did was driven by Praja Palana, welfare of the people, the well-being of all. For most people, self-interest comes first, then the interest of near and dear ones, and finally, if at all, the interest and well-being of society. We usually worry about rules and the right thing to do only to the extent we are forced to do so. For Ram, the priorities were inverted. His foremost commitment was to the people. His personal interest was simply absent from any of his decision-making. And he knew that society's long-term interest could only be secured through dharma, righteousness, and satya, truth. Now coming back to Dashrath's succession planning, while it was clear that Ram was the perfect candidate, it was not up to him to simply appoint Ram and thrust his decision on everyone. Dashrath had to consult all stakeholders who were going to be affected by the decision. So he convened a meeting of a parishad, or council that comprised other kings as well as citizen representatives of other janpads. To the Parishad, he proposed Ram's name and said, Yadidam menu rupartham maya sadhu sumantritam bhavanto menu manyantam katham va karavanyaham. If you are in favor of my proposal, kindly give me your consent. And if not, please advise what other course of action I should take. Although I favor this proposal, please do consider if some other option would bring greater good. Deliberations by the unbiased result in a better outcome. The members of the Parishad were madhyastha, unbiased, without any conflict of interest. Interestingly, the king of Kekaya, Kaikeyi's father and Bharat's grandfather, and King Janak of Mithila, Ram's father-in-law, had not been invited. This gathering was not meant to merely rubber stamp a decision already taken, but to arrive at the right choice for succession. The Parishad members had internal deliberations and then came back and announced their decision to Dashrath. Indeed, they wholeheartedly endorsed Ram's name. But upon hearing their decision, Dashrath feigned ignorance, ajananniva, and asked them why they were so keen to see Ram ascend the throne. Was he, Dashrath, not doing a good enough job? Dashrath wanted to be sure that they had arrived at this decision for the right reasons. The representatives said that the people of all lands wished to see Ram being crowned as Yuvraj. They gave many reasons for their decision, but it is telling what they said first. Rama Satpurusho Loke Satya Satya Parayana. In this world, Ram is the very embodiment of Satya. This was the Ram the people had chosen. Iti her asa. That is how it happened.
So that was an introduction to Shree Ram's character right at the beginning of the Ayodhya Kand, when the question was that who should succeed Dashrath. Now, I see three questions here, and they are actually very interesting questions. So I will weave them into my discussion and narration going ahead. But if you want, do you, Shreyansh, can you ask Yuvraj to read out his question so that we have it on record and the others also know what we are talking about?
Yeah, Yuvraj, you can go ahead with the question.
Good evening, sir. I hope you're doing well.
Yes.
So, sir, my question is, sir, often
Yuvraj, I can't see you. That's okay. But if possible, just turn it on.
right.
Yeah.
I think I can't start my video.
That's okay. If you can't, that's
I've
fine.
given the access.
As a as a speaker, just staring into the screen is one thing. But if you're asking me, I know who I'm talking to. That's all.
I'm unable to open my camera, start my camera.
Okay, then go ahead with your question. At least we'll have it on record, and the others will know what the question was. Yeah.
Yes. So, sir, our general perception of how Sri Ram was. So, he's mentioned as Maryada Purushottam, a man of ideals. But in our times in society, these ideals are considered backward, old, and unnecessary. So, sir, why are these ideals important, and like, how can we follow it in our day-to-day life, especially for our students?
Wonderful, wonderful. In fact, I thank you for asking this. I think this is the most important question in this discussion or in any discussion on Ramayana, which is how is it relevant in our lives today? Why are we talking about it? See, we are reading something that happened many years back, How is it relevant in today's world? How is the Adi Kavya relevant in the 21st century? So, thank you for raising that. And let me walk you through some situations that you may face today and situations that happened in the text. See, the purpose of the reason, also before that, let me go into why Maharshi Valmiki wrote this. Why did he write it? And that he has given right at the beginning. I was reading out the second verse, right? Kon vasmin sampratam loke. And then he lists out characteristics that he is looking for. Gunavan, Vidvan, Viryavan, Samartha. So, who is brave, generous, thoughtful, caring, a scholar, a doer, who has attained control over his anger, but will not remain silent in the face of wrongdoing, who is grateful. Now, all of these qualities are universal human values. If you look at universal human values as defined by even any body like United Nations, etc., this is what it is. And they are relevant for all times. Who can argue that these are no longer relevant? For example, let's say you want to do a startup after graduation, right? Now, do you want yourself to set a bold target that nobody has done before? Or no, or is it better that you are afraid of setting a bold target and just go with something that has been done before? Of course, you would say a bold target, correct? Think of the Setu. So they had to cross the ocean. Something like the Setu had never been built before. And by the way, the answer was not floating rocks. So in the Valmiki Ramayana, there is an engineering solution to this, and that solution was not floating rocks. But what I want to highlight right now is there was a challenge that had never been tackled before. And Shree Ram organized the Vanar Sena and solved that challenge. Is it something that we can be inspired by when we set goals for a startup or for any other professional activity? An immense challenge that hasn't been solved before. In your startup founders group, for example, if you started with 2 or 3 friends, do you want your colleagues to be truthful to you, or do you prefer that they be liars? I think the answer is clear. You want them to be truthful. If you do something well within your founders group, do you want appreciation from them? Yes, of course. So a founders group that is truthful, caring, grateful is the kind of group that you would want. And this is how Maharshi Valmiki has described Shree Ram, that he was the highest example of what it means to be a good human being. Now, when we ask the question, is the Ramayana relevant anymore? It's like asking, is being a good human being relevant in today's world? Of course it is. Even in our personal lives, whether as a friend or a partner, do we want somebody who will support us? Like Sri Ram, Lakshman, Hanuman, and Sita supported each other during Vanvas. So, the reason Maharshi Valmiki's Ramayana is relevant even today is that it highlights universal human values which don't change. In fact, it is interesting that Maharshi Valmiki wrote in the Ramayana itself, all those thousands of years ago. He said, Yavat sthasyanti girayah saritascha mahitale tavad Ramayana katha lokeshu pracharishyati. Until the mountains and rivers exist on this earth, Ramayana, the story of Ram, will always be told. How could he have been confident then, thousands of years back, that what he is writing will always be told? The answer is relevance. He was confident because what he was writing was relevant for all situations, because what he was writing about was universal human values. Now, which brings me to the third question. So, or second and third, in fact, they are mixed, because when we say Shree Ram was the ideal, many people start with the question, but they say, but he didn't treat Sita correctly, whether that is in the Agnipariksha incident or later on, etc. So once again, Shreyansh, do you want somebody who had asked that question? I think Radhika. Yeah. Do you want to ask Radhika to ask the question, and then I will weave that into the narration as well.
Radhika, you can go ahead with your question.
Thank you. Good evening, sir. Sir, actually, I am confused about the story about Sita leaving the palace. If, as a king, Sri Ram did this, then isn't it a bad influence for the praja? If, as a husband, he did with his wife, then what will other learn from him as a righteous person, as a Purushottam? I'm just
Yes.
confused about this story. Is it right, or is there another perspective about this?
Okay, sure. And before we figure out what is right, like we said, the series title is Quest for Truth. So let us find out what actually happened and then come back to the question. So let us look at Sri Ram and Sita's relationship. Now, the question that you asked comes right at the end. But before that, I want to establish what their relationship was. Maharishi Valmiki first brings that out in Ayodhya Kand itself. On the day that Sri Ram was to be coronated, he was sent into exile, like we know. Kaikeyi's demands were that Ram be sent off into exile and Bharat be made the Yuvraj. And when he went to tell that to Sita, let us look at Sita's reaction and their conversation at that time, and then come back to your question. Shreyansh, can you play season 2, episode 9?
Yes, sure.
This is Valmiki Ramayana, Season 2, Episode 9, Sita. The terrible news of Ram's Vanvas had not yet reached Sita. For her, this was still a most joyful occasion, the day of Ram's coronation. She was eagerly waiting for him to come back after meeting Dashrath and Kaikeyi. When Ram got back, excited well-wishers still thronged his palace. He went past them with his head bent down a little. Kinchidavang mukha. One look, and Sita realized something was amiss. She started trembling upon seeing Ram distressed and anxious. Remember, Valmiki had said at the end of Balakand that Ram and Sita were so close that they could read each other's minds even when things were left unsaid. And upon seeing Sita, Ram too could not hold back his sorrow anymore. Sorrow and anxiety, not for what had happened to him, of course, but at what this meant for Sita. Sita saw that his face had turned pale and he was sweating. Vivarnavadanam prasvinnam. She asked, "What happened? Everything is ready for your coronation. Why are you like this?" And then Ram told her about Kaikeyi's demands to make Bharat the Yuvraj and to banish him, Ram, into the forest. He further told her that she ought to take care of Dashrath and Kausalya and also Sumitra and Kaikeyi. He clarified that he felt no bitterness towards Kaikeyi and still thought of her as his mother. He also counseled Sita on how to deal practically with the fact that his younger brother, Bharat, would now be the king.
I wonder how Sita felt about all this.
You don't need to wonder, because here is a woman who does not hold back her words. Sita looked at Ram in an affectionately cross way. Pranayadeva Sankruddha, and said, "What are these words that you are throwing around? I feel like laughing." They are not worthy of being spoken by you, and not worth listening to either. Quite a response. Consider this. When Dashrath had heard the pronouncement, he had gone into shock. Kausalya had wailed in sorrow, and Lakshman had raged. Only Ram had taken it with perfect equanimity. Now, just like him, Sita too was entirely unmoved by the news itself. For Sita was Dharmadnya and Dharmacharini. She knew Dharma and always followed it. So she said nothing about whether Ram should abide by the king's promise or not. She said not a word against her mother-in-law, Kaikeyi, who had just destroyed her life. She did not beat her chest and cry, "Why me?" Her approach was the same as Ram's. Uphold Dharma and hold no bitterness in your heart. But she had one strong objection to what Ram had said. And this was the reason for calling his words laughable. She reminded him that a husband and wife are meant to share everything. It is the husband alone that is always there for a woman, not her father, mother, or son. And a wife alone shares the destiny of her husband. O Ram, the best among men, I am also therefore required to live in the forest. Sita argued that what Kaikeyi asked of Ram automatically applied to her as well. Effectively, Sita was objecting to Ram considering her as being separate from him. And Anushishtasmi matra cha pitra cha vividhashrayam nasmi samprati vaktavya vartitavyam yathamaya. I have been taught well enough by my mother and my father about my duties in different life situations, about what I ought and ought not to do. Now there is no need to lecture me about any of this. Sita loved Ram and was totally devoted to him. Sita told him that she was least interested in the comforts of royal life and knew the difficulties of forest life. Further, they were to live as ascetics, and so she would be Niyata, Brahmacharini. She would not be a burden on him during the Vanvas and would try and help in whatever manner she could. All she wanted was to be with him. But Ram urged her to drop the idea. Sita's eyes were beginning to tear up as Ram said, Hita buddhya khalu vacho mayaitadabhidhiyate. I am saying this for your own good. The forest is full of terrible hardships. Food and water are hard to find. There are deadly snakes, dangerous insects, and wild beasts. It is a thorny path. Valmiki has devoted an entire sarga to explain these difficulties of forest life. But Sita countered, whatever the difficulties may be, I will gladly accept them only to be with you. Yas tvaya sah saswargo nirayo yas tvaya vina. For me, heaven is where we are together, and hell being without you. The tears were flowing in a torrent now. Arguing, urging, and entreating, she finally hugged Ram tightly and cried inconsolably. Patim prishamalingya chukrosha saswaram. Ram was finally convinced. He said, I did not know how you felt about it and was therefore reluctant to impose the hardship of Vanvas on you. O my beloved Sita, your decision is correct. Valmiki's narration of this electrifying conversation makes this much crystal clear. Ram and Sita were totally committed to upholding Dharma and totally committed to each other. For Sita and Ram, Siya Ram, their relationship was not merely a hyphenation of their names, but a hyphenation of their destiny. Iti, her, asa. That is how it happened.
So this was the introduction in the Ramayana to Shree Ram and Sita's relationship in the Ayodhya Kand. Now, by the way, I just see a chat put by Aman about the YouTube channel 21 Notes. So yes, these videos are from the YouTube channel. Please do watch. It's a 100-episode series on Valmiki Ramayana. 21 Notes is the channel name. Now, we just saw that Sita was completely devoted to Ram, and she said that whatever is asked of you, I must face that as well. And so she went into exile. Now, the question was, did Sri Ram in turn treat her well? Shreyansh, can you put a poll for this? We didn't discuss it before, but if you can quickly put up that, the three choices are Sri Ram treated Sita well, did not. So, did Sri Ram treat Sita well? Yes, no. The third answer is I don't know enough about what happened. Yeah, Shreyansh, you're on.
Yes, sir. The poll is live.
All right.
Okay. Again, guys, bottom right corner in the activities section, you will see the polls option and you have to go.
Good. So we have quite a few responses. If we get to the level we had earlier, then we'll close it out. I'm glad that, it's a good mix. The majority is answer is yes. There are a few no's, and more than no's, not enough knowledge also, which is the quest for truth. So that is the series. Let's find out what happened. Okay, Shreyansh, you want to? Still, people are voting in.
For everyone, bottom right corner, the fourth option, activities. Go in the poll section. You'll find the question there. We'll close the poll in 10 seconds. So, okay, I think everyone has voted. Okay.
Good, good. I think the proportion remains the same. Majority yes, and then some no, and a few more not enough knowledge. So usually the the questions about whether Sri Ram treated Sita properly or not are about two incidents. One happened at the end of the Yuddhakan, the war was over, and then there is the incident of Agni Pravesh or Agnipariksha, as sometimes it is called. And the second incident happens once they have come back to Ayodhya. The popular story goes that a washerman said something, and because of that, Sri Ram asked Sita to leave the palace and so on. Right? So that is the incident. Those are the two incidents. One in Yuddhakan, one after they came back from Ayodhya, which is in the Uttarkand, which also brings me to another question which somebody had asked, that is Uttarkand part of the original Valmiki Ramayana, right? So we will take that question as well. First, find out, let's go in the quest for truth on the Agnipariksha incident. So I will relate to you how Maharshi Valmiki has mentioned it. The war was over and Shree Ram could not enter Lanka because as per the rules of the Vanvas, he could not go into any city. And so he sent Vibhishan to call Sita. Vibhishan, but when he was sending Vibhishan, he gave the specific direction that Divyangaragam Vaidehim Divyabharana Bhushitam, that Sita should wear Divya Abharan, should wear her jewelry. And only then she should come. She should take her bath, wear her jewelry, and then come. Go and get her quickly. So Vibhishan wasn't sure why he had requested it, but he went and told Sita. Sita was obviously, her answer was, I want to see Ram, the bath can wait. Asnatva drashtum ichhami. Why the bath right now? But Vibhishan advised that they should follow what Sri Ram had said. And so Sita got ready. Vibhishan brought her to the battlefield in a palki, a palanquin, and Vibhishan went and told Sri Ram, Sita is here. Maharshi Valmiki says, Sri Ram looked down for a bit, he was thoughtful, and then he said, Sita should get off the palki and walk towards me. Vibhishan was not clear why such strange requests, but he went and told Sita to come down. At that time, there was a crowd of Vanaras and Rakshasas who were gathering, and Vibhishan's security guards were pushing them back because this had become a spectacle. And Sri Ram told Vibhishan, don't push them back, let them watch. Again, not sure. Nobody was sure why he was doing this. And so when Sita was getting off the palki, there was a crowd, everyone was looking at her, she was embarrassed. Lajjaya. She got off the palki, walked towards Sri Ram, and then when she looked up, their eyes finally met. After months, they had finally seen each other and their faces lit up with joy. But then Sri Ram's expression changed and he told Sita, Oh lady, may you be well, but you should know that this war that I fought was not for your sake. By abducting you, Ravan had insulted me and I had to take revenge. And so I fought this war for the glory of the Ikshvaku dynasty. But now there is a doubt about your character. Ravan would surely have been attracted to someone as beautiful as you. And so what sort of a man would take back a woman who has spent time in someone else's house? I cannot bear to look at you. Now you are free to go and stay with whomever you wish to. You can go wherever you want. You can stay with Lakshman or Shatrughna or Bharat or even Vibhishan or Sugriv. It means nothing to me. These are extremely harsh words. Now, if we came directly to the end of the story in the Uttarkand. If you've been reading the Valmiki Ramayana, when you come to this point, you may turn back your pages back and forth. Not sure how come Sri Ram is saying this. This is totally out of character. Out of character because when Sita ji was abducted, Sri Ram was completely shattered. And he kept telling Lakshman again and again, first in Panchavati, then at Rishyamu, Pampa, all the time. Yam vina notsahe muhurtamapi jivitum. I cannot live for a moment without Sita. She is dearer to me than life itself. That is what Sri Ram had said again and again. In fact, there is a very long sarga. When they came to the banks of Pampa Lake, Sri Ram describes the beauty of Pampa Lake in Vasant Ritu, spring. And in everything that he sees, there is joy and beauty. But for him, there is no joy because he is longing for Sita. Sri Ram had also said that if I can be with Sita, I will not wish for anything else in the world, not even Ayodhya. Sprihayeyam na Ayodhyaye. And this we hear again and again till this point. So when we hear these harsh words that Sri Ram just said to Sita, it is completely out of character. And Sita was also surprised when she heard this. She broke down. She was not expecting this. She started crying. And like you saw in the brief episode that we the introduction for Sita, she's a strong woman, and she said so clearly again. She said, if this is how you felt, you should have told me earlier when you sent Hanuman. I would have killed myself then itself. What was the need to fight this war? You put your life at risk unnecessarily, and all your friends' lives as well. There was no need to fight this war. And I cannot bear to live with this baseless controversy about my character. And if after all these years you still do not understand me, then I might as well be dead. That is what Sita told Sri Ram. Yadi teham na vidnyata hata tenasmi shashvatam. If after all these years you still don't understand me, I might as well be dead. And then she turned towards Lakshman and said, Lakshman, light a fire. I will walk into it. Now Lakshman, like Vibhishan and everyone else, could not understand why Sri Ram had done all this and why he was saying this, because Lakshman had witnessed what Sri Ram felt after Sita had been abducted. He had been with them all these years. He knew what their relationship was, and he knew this was completely out of character. So Lakshman didn't understand why Sri Ram was saying all these things, and he looked angrily at Sri Ram. And then Maharshi Valmiki says, Savidnyaya manaschandam Ramasya akara suchitam. Ram made a gesture to Lakshman, and Lakshman understood what was in his mind. Ramasya akara suchitam. Ram had indicated to him, made a gesture. And Lakshman understood. Ram had told him, I know what I'm doing. Go ahead, go. Play along. Okay? It was all an act. And why an act, we'll see. But he said, I know what I'm doing. Go ahead. So Lakshman lit the fire. Sita walked up to it. And then there was a roar among the crowds. The women screamed, and Sita said, if I am not at fault in any way, if my character is spotless, may the fire protect me. And then Sita jumped into the fire. At that time, the Devas, Gandharvas, Brahma, Indra, everyone came there. Agni Dev brought Sita out of the fire. And then they all spoke to Sri Ram. Here, let's go back to the definition of itihas that I had mentioned. Purvavrittam kathayuktam itihasam prachakshare. So this is the kathayuktam part, that Sita actually jumped into the fire and Agni Dev brought her out and then spoke to Ram. What we have to understand is that the crowds that had gathered there spoke to Sri Ram. And they said, Sita has done nothing wrong. She didn't come here by choice. Ravan brought her by force. Never again say such harmful, hurtful things to Sita. And Ram said, I know Sita very well. I will never leave Sita. Na vihatum maya shakya. It is just not possible. Just as the sun's rays, so we cannot be separated. Just as the sun and its rays cannot be separated. You cannot have the sun without the sun's rays. Sri Ram did not have any question for Sita. But he knew that they would doubt her. And he wanted them to see her as the queen, as the rightful queen. And that is why he had created this situation. Now everything falls into place. Why did Sita have to take her bath and wear her jewelry? Because Sri Ram wanted to make sure that the first image that they see is that of their future queen and not a destitute woman. Why did he ask the crowds not to be pushed back? So that they could hear the hurtful words that he would say. And then he said those hurtful words, which made the people speak up and say, Sita has done nothing wrong. And this is exactly the outcome that Sri Ram wanted. And with that, Sri Ram and Sita were united once again. So this is the incident of the Agni Pravesh. In fact, the word Agnipariksha is not used in the Valmiki Ramayana. Many people think that Sri Ram had actually doubted Sita's character. But that is not true. If you only read part of it, which is the hurtful words, you will come to that conclusion. But if you read all the sargas before, you will know, first of all, that this is something totally out of character. And then when you read the word Savijnaya Manashchandam Ramasya Akara Suchitam, Ram made a gesture, Lakshman understood what was going on in his mind. And then Ram said, I will never leave Sita. Then you understand the full picture. I hope that is useful in your quest for truth about the Agnipravesh incident. Afterwards, so this is the Agnipravesh incident. The Yuddhakand ends with them going back to Ayodhya and the coronation. At the end of Yuddhakand, Valmiki says, and then Ram ruled for many, many years. All was well in the land. Sarvam muditam evasi. Everyone was happy and all was well. People lived long lives. They lived in harmony with each other. No mention of any washerman, by the way. They lived in harmony with each other. And they could not get enough. They kept talking of Shree Ram. Ramo, Ramo, Rama iti prajanam abhavan kathaha. Ram did this, Ram did that. They kept saying. This is the entire Ramayana. Ramayanam idam kritsnam. That's what Maharishi Valmiki says at the end of Yuddhakand, by the way. And he also says, Evam etat pura vrittam akyanam bhadramastuha. This is how it all happened. May you all be well. And that is the end of the Yuddhakand. Now, does that read like the end of the story? It does. Right? So, if you're reading, you'd think, okay, this is the end. However, if you purchase a copy of the Valmiki Ramayana today, you have another book afterwards. So like the Yuddhakand, there is the Uttarkand. And that we don't have time to go through that fully. That there are many issues. In fact, on the channel, I have put a 1-hour podcast exclusively on this, on why the Uttarkand was not authored by Maharishi Valmiki. And so the short answer is that the story of love, Kush. By the way, the washerman is not mentioned in the Uttarkand as well. In the Uttarkand, it is said that people were unhappy and then Shree Ram sent Sita off, etc., etc. But that is in the Uttarkand, and the Uttarkand was not written by Maharishi Valmiki. Uttarkand is not Itihas. So for this discussion, I will just mention it. But if you want the details on why is that so, on what basis can we say that the Uttarkand is not a part of, could not have been authored by Maharishi Valmiki, do see that it's a 1-hour discussion on the Uttarkand. All right. With that, Shreyansh, we are about 1 hour, 10 minutes into this. Should we look at if there are any more questions?
Yes, so just a second. Okay. There are quite a few questions. Like Shashwat.
You pick and read out to me, or you ask them to read out and I will answer them.
Okay, so Shashwat has asked the question, sir. It's said that yugas are of lakh years. Then how did two yugas, Treta and Dwapar, passed within 3,000 to 4,000 years?
Yes. Okay. So now another thing I want to share. The question is, when did the Ramayana happen? Right? Because if you're saying it happened 3,000 or 4,000 years ago, you are already putting a date to it. Correct? Now, as far as the dating of the Ramayana goes, once again, the reference text is the Valmiki Ramayana. Now, the Valmiki Ramayana has many clues which help us date the Ramayana. For example, I will tell you, there is a mention of the Saraswati river. So, Bharat, when the messengers went to call Bharat, they talk about the different rivers that they passed by. The Saraswati river was still flowing at that time. Okay, so now geologically you have a marker that if the Saraswati river was still flowing at that time, it could not have happened after the Saraswati river went extinct, right? So we have some date for that, it went extinct. So that is one bound, if you will. The second bound is that, for example, talking of rivers only, the Yamuna earlier used to flow west and drain into the Saraswati Sindhu basin. Over time, it changed direction and started flowing east and joined Ganga at Prayagraj. At the time of the Valmiki Ramayana, already Yamuna was flowing into Prayagraj because there is a clear reference of them crossing the Yamuna, Prayagraj, Bharadwaj Muni's ashram, etc. So now you have another marker of when that happened. It happened sometime in between those two dates. Clearly, those references to lakhs of years, etc., is out of question as far as this goes. Further, there are a lot of astronomical location of stars and constellations and their movements. For example, just before the Setu, as they were coming south from Kishkinda towards Lanka, there is a point where Lakshman says, he looks up at the sky and says, the stars seem to be aligned in our favor. And then he describes some stars. So these are the star locations and constellations and movements that are used by researchers now to date the events of the Ramayana. For example, you may look up the dating done by Sri Nileshok. He puts the date at 14,000 years from now, 12,000 BC. Right? If you ask, is that a correct, date? I would say it's the best. It seems to be the best that we have got, because there will always be. This is like the line of best fit. If you collect all the references from the Valmiki Ramayana, you will not get one exact date which satisfies all the clues. There will be different clues, but if you see what is the closest, you will get a date. Now I'll give you some more clues. When Hanuman went to look for Sita in Lanka, Valmiki says that he saw elephants which had 2 tusks and also elephants which had 3 and 4 tusks. Chaturdantai. Now 4-tusked elephants became extinct maybe 10 or 15,000 years ago. Right? So it could not have been 3,000 years ago. So that's another clue. Now the inconsistency we modern researchers find is that in that same sarga or around that same situation, when Hanuman was looking for Sita and he found 4-tusked elephants, he also saw vimanas. Not one, not just Pushpak Viman, multiple Vimans. So some sort of flying vehicles. And we find that difficult to reconcile, saying how can 4-tusked elephants and flight be at the same time? But I am giving you what is written in the Valmiki Ramayana. So with that, you can draw your own conclusions. Okay, so as far as the question goes, the yugas, see, if you say it happened so many lakhs of years ago based on the Treta Yuga and the Yuga definition, then all of these data points will not fall with that date, will not be consistent with that date.
Thank you for your answer, sir. The next question is of Ranjan Kumar Yadav. अगर माता कैकेयी के कहने पर ही मात्र बिना किसी विरोध के भगवान राम वनवास जाने को तैयार हो गए थे, तो क्या ये तो उनकी पितृभक्ति दर्शाती है, लेकिन क्या यह पूरी तरह निस्वार्थ था या वो पहले से जानते थे कि उन्हें राक्षसों का वध और धर्म स्थापना के लिए वनवास जाना होगा?
बहुत अच्छा प्रश्न है। और ये श्री राम वनवास,
There is another part you can read too.
आप पढ़िए रंजन जी।
Okay, so the next part is, तो क्या ये उनका ईश्वरीय उद्देश्य था जिसे वे व्यक्तिगत कर्तव्यों की आड़ में पूरा कर रहे थे?
हाँ, तो इसमें 2 प्रश्न हैं आपके। एक, श्री राम वन में गए क्यों? आपकी जो क्वेस्ट फॉर ट्रूथ है उसमें देखते हैं व्हाट वाज द इंसिडेंट एट द टाइम ऑफ वनवास। और दूसरा है, श्रेयांश जी आप पहले भी बात कर रहे थे कि ह्यूमन और डिवाइन, नर या भगवान, दैट इज द ब्रॉडर क्वेश्चन। अभी सामान्यतः हम जो मानते हैं कि श्री राम वनवास क्यों गए, क्योंकि कैकेयी माँ ने उनको जाने, कैकेयी माँ की मांगे थी, या कुछ लोग कहते हैं दशरथ जी ने उन्हें जाने के लिए कह दिया इसलिए चले गए। वैसे वाल्मीकि रामायण में ये जो प्रसंग है, जब श्री राम दशरथ और कैकेयी जी से मिलने गए, तब दशरथ जी कुछ भी नहीं बोलते हैं, क्योंकि उस प्रसंग में शुरुआत में वे बस राम कह के गला गदगद हो जाता है और वो आगे कुछ भी कह नहीं पाते हैं। बाद में सब संभाषण कैकेयी माँ और श्री राम के बीच में है, और अंत में श्री दशरथ जी कहते हैं धिक कष्टम, बस उसके और वो कुछ भी नहीं कहते। तो दशरथ जी ने तो वैसे श्री राम को कभी वनवास भेजा ही नहीं, मतलब उन्होंने कहा नहीं आप वन में जाओ। बाद में जब श्री राम सभा में आए तब दशरथ जी कहते हैं मुझे बंदी बना लो लेकिन तुम वन में मत जाओ, ऐसा श्री राम को कहते हैं। तो श्री राम गए क्यों, तो ये समझना चाहिए। देखिए दशरथ जी ने, मान लीजिए कैकेयी मां को 2 ब्लैंक चेक दे दिए थे, उन्होंने वचन दे दिया था, 2 मांगे, और कैकेयी मां वो चेक भर के ले आई थी। पहली मांग थी कि भरत को युवराज बनाया जाए, तो दूसरी मांग थी श्री राम को वनवास में भेज दिया जाए। ये चेक मतलब मैं तो आपको समझाने के लिए कह रहा हूं, these were 2 boons, promises that Dashrath had made, and Kaikeyi said you had given me these 2 promises, now this is what I want. अब श्री राम के सामने प्रश्न ये था, will he allow the king's word to be held true or not? And that is why he went into वनवास, क्योंकि राजा का वचन कभी टूटना नहीं चाहिए। अगर राजा का ही वचन टूट गया तो किसके वचन पर भरोसा किया जा सकता है, तो समाज में धर्म कैसे रहेगा, ये उनका प्रश्न था। हम कुछ लोग ऐसा मानते हैं बिल्कुल सीधा साधा कि पिताजी ने कह दिया इसलिए चले गए। अगर इतनी सीधी बात होती तो उसका आज के दिन क्या रेलेवेंस होता, आप ही बताइए। हाउ मेनी ऑफ यू, इफ योर फादर टेल्स यू टू go away and leave everything because of a promise he made to a mother to a woman who is not your mother, will you follow that? If the answer is no, then is it relevant today? That is why if we don't understand the Ramayana correctly, then we find that it is not relevant anymore. However, if we find correctly, what did he do? He wanted to make sure that the king's word must be held true, because that is the basis of dharma, and dharma is the only way in which people's welfare, prajapalan, will be ensured. और उनका उद्देश्य यही था कि सर्वभूतेषु को हितः, सभी लोगों के हित में कौन विचार करते थे, श्री राम, और उनका हित कैसे होगा, धर्म से होगा, और अगर राजा का वचन टूट जाएगा तो धर्म टूट जाएगा, इसीलिए वे वन में गए थे। वैसे एक और आप प्रसंग भी देखें, चित्रकूट में भरत और श्री राम के बीच का संवाद, it is a debate, it is a fascinating debate, perhaps the only debate in all of history that I know of where 2 princes are arguing that the other is the rightful successor. देखो, 2 राजा के 2 बेटों में झगड़ा तो कई बार होता है, विवाद कई बार होता है, लेकिन हमेशा यही होता है कि मैं राजा बनूंगा, और वो चाहे विवाद हो या और किसी ढंग से उसका सोल्यूशन निकालते हो, लेकिन राजा मैं बनूंगा ऐसा विवाद होता है। लेकिन यहां विवाद था राजा तुम बनोगे, दैट इज द राइट थिंग टू डू, और दोनों में चर्चा हुई थी। और भरत भी आगे कहते हैं कि ये राज्य मुझे मिला, अब मैं तुम्हें दे देता हूं, तो इसमें आपको क्या आपत्ति है, अभी आप स्वीकार कर लीजिए। लेकिन श्री राम का आर्गुमेंट यही था, तब भी उन्होंने कहा कि पिताजी के वचन है, उसके लिए तुम्हें कुछ करना है वो तुम करो, मुझे कुछ करना है वो मैं करूंगा, तुम्हें राज्य संभालना है तो तुम संभालो, मुझे वन में जाना है। श्री राम के लिए जैसे इसमें कोई अंतर ही नहीं था, वो कह रहे थे तुम्हें जो बताया गया वो तुम करो, मुझे जो बताया गया वो मैं करूंगा, और इसलिए मैं वनवास में जा रहा हूं। तो ये बात समझना बहुत जरूरी है कि श्री राम, राजा का वचन जो चेक है, चेक बाउंस नहीं हो सकता, वचन टूट नहीं सकता, इसलिए वन में गए थे। और ये सीख थी, केवल कैकेयी मां की मांगे थी, इच्छा थी, ऐसी बात नहीं है। रंजन जी, दूसरा क्या प्रश्न था आपका? हाँ, नर या भगवान?
नहीं, दूसरा प्रश्न मेरा ये था कि अगर ऐसा था तो ये भी इसका एक क्वेश्चन इस पे भी उठता है कि क्या ये उनका ईश्वरीय उद्देश्य था जिसे वो व्यक्तिगत कर्तव्यों की आड़ में कर रहे थे?
नहीं, हाँ, तो इसका मैं वाल्मीकि रामायण में बाद में जब वे वन में जाते हैं और राक्षस, सॉरी, मैं शुड आई गो अहेड? हाँ, तो
यस।
अयोध्या कांड में जब वे वन में जाते हैं, तब तो वे इतना ही कहते हैं कि राजा का वचन पालन करने के लिए मुझे वन में जाना है। तब बात क्लियर है। आगे चल के अरण्य कांड में जब उनकी राक्षसों से मुठभेड़ शुरू होती है और जब वहां के ऋषि मुनि उनसे याचना करते हैं, हमारी रक्षा कीजिए, राक्षस हमारा संहार कर रहे हैं, और श्री राम देखते हैं एक जगह, तो वो देखते हैं देयर इज अ माउंटेन ऑफ बोन्स एंड डेड बॉडीज, राक्षसों का संहार देखते हैं। और तब वे कहते हैं कि लगता है मुझे वन में केवल राजा का वचन निभाने के लिए ही नहीं, राक्षसों के अत्याचार को रोकने के लिए भी भेजा है, ऐसा लगता है, ऐसा वे तब कहते हैं। तो क्या वे पहले से ही जानते थे? वो आप देख लीजिए। अयोध्या कांड में जब वे निकल पड़ते हैं, तब तो राक्षसों के बारे में श्री राम स्वयं कुछ नहीं कहते। अभी इसी से आगे मैं ये ह्यूमन और डिवाइन प्रश्न ले लेता हूं, नर या भगवान। द आंसर इज बोथ। तो वाल्मीकि जी ये तो कहते हैं कि वे एक नर का चरित्र लिख रहे हैं, रामस्य चरितम रामस्य अयनम। लेकिन वे ये भी कहते हैं कि जैसे बालकांड में विष्णु भगवान ने दशरथ के 4 पुत्रों के रूप में जन्म लिया। सो लॉर्ड विष्णु took birth as the 4 sons of Dashrath. Afterwards also he mentions that, by the way, yes, all 4 sons that is mentioned in the Balakand. Afterwards also it is mentioned that Shree Ram is Vishnu in human form. Now the answer, when I say both, people want a clear answer. No, no, no. Was he human or God? But Maharshi Valmiki has referred to him as both, as Nar and as Vishnu. And here I want to bring out another point, that this differentiation between Nar, between human and divine, is actually not there for our ancient rishis. So there is divinity everywhere, and Sri Ram's character was such that the divinity shined through him, and therefore he is divine as well. I'll give you another example. See, as students of IIT, you will be interested to know that Maharshi Valmiki, all these thousands of years ago, describes the water cycle. You know, you would have drawn the water cycle in your school tech, evaporation from the seas, then it goes into the clouds, and then the rainfall on land, correct? This is the water cycle. Maharshi Valmiki describes this very poetically, Navamasa Dhritam Garbham. So he says that the sky, with the help of the sun's rays, takes water and holds it in its womb, garb mein, for 9 months, and then delivers this life-giving water back to the earth. So just before Chaturmas, at the start of Chaturmas, at the start of Varsha Ritu, Maharshi Valmiki talks about this water cycle. Again, he's not telling us science principles, by the way. He's talking very beautifully about Varsha Ritu. And he's a poet. He's talking about how the earth rejuvenates because of rainfall and so on. So clearly he's being very scientific. And just a few verses later, he talks about Salilam Surendra Dattam, which is that rainfall is because of Indra, Lord Indra. Now, sometimes we modern readers have this question. No. Did rainfall happen because of Indra, or did it happen because of evaporation and precipitation? The reason I gave you this example was, in Maharshi Valmiki's mind, there is no difference. Yes, he understands the science behind it. Yes, he understands evaporation and precipitation. But at the end of the day, he recognizes the divinity in all natural phenomena. So the two are not separate. Coming back to the question, human and divine is also not separate. It is human and divine.
So, if you permit, can we take one last question?
Sure.
Okay, Rohit Singh has a question. So, why there is so much difference in different Ramayans written by different authors, like in Valmiki Ramayana, Tulsidas Ramayana, Kambar Ramayana, etc. Different Ramayana has different story. Why is it so?
Okay, another very good question, and I think Shreyansh, you had also asked me this earlier, and you had also said, do the other retellings actually do any good.
Yes.
Right. So, see, Maharishi Valmiki wrote the original Ramayana, right? At the time that Shree Ram lived, Maharishi Valmiki's Ramayana is itihas. Itihasa means that is how it happened. All the other versions of the Ramayana, the later retellings, none of the authors actually claim that they are writing itihas. They don't claim. The purpose is different. See, many of these are devotional texts. Some of them are literary texts. They are just stories. Even the authors are not claiming that what they are writing is itihas. But what is the purpose of this? Now, actually, and what is the purpose and do they do any good? Answer is yes. Done correctly, many of these retellings are very helpful. Why? I'll give you an example. Shabri Ma's story, you would have heard. Huh? The story of half-eaten fruits, झूठे बेर. हाँ? अभी वाल्मीकि रामायण में झूठे बेर वाली कहानी नहीं है. So when Sri Ram went to Shabri Ma's ashram, they have described that the background of Shabri Mata is that she had joined Matanga Muni's ashram as a maid, as a caretaker. काम छोटे मोटे काम करती थी वो जब उन्होंने ज्वाइन किया था. Over time, she used to sit in all the discussions of the rishis. तो कोई भेदभाव नहीं था वहां पे तब. There was no discrimination. She used to actually sit in विज्ञाने ताम नित्यम अबहिष्कृताम. उन्हें कभी विज्ञान की बातों से दूर नहीं रखा गया, ये बताया. And over time she became a siddha. And she also became siddha sammata. So सबने उनको acknowledge कर लिया था कि ये सिद्धा है. Over time, Matang Muni passed away, the other rishis went away. She was the only one who was there in the ashram. When Sri Ram and Lakshman went, she offered them fruits from the forest that her guru, Matanga Muni, had very lovingly and carefully tended to. So there was a forest nearby. वहां से fruits लाके उन्होंने श्री राम को दिए. Now this is the story in the Valmiki Ramayana. Now, you would have heard this story that Shabri Mata was discriminated against and she offered half-eaten fruits and Sri Ram accepted them. At that time, the others said, why are you eating this? And Sri Ram explained, because of her devotion, I see no difference between her and others, and so I will accept them. Now, this is actually, if you understand what has happened in the past, that as far as Valmiki Ramayana goes, at that time there was no discrimination and this is what has happened. However, we all know that in society there was discrimination in later times and people were kept away from knowledge, right? So जो संत हैं वो रामायण की कथा लेकर लोगों को अच्छे व्यवहार के बारे में बता रहे हैं. So that is why they use the story to say कि देखो श्री राम ने भी झूठे बेर खा लिए. Now you should not do discrimination, right? That is the lesson that they were trying to impart. And the lesson is very good, very appropriate for that time. So the relevance of that story was because at a later time there was discrimination and the sons wanted to use the story of Ramayana to tell people what is the right behavior. Now, there is also, if you understand the Ramayana correctly, you can appreciate the other Ramayans. You may have heard the story of Angad sitting on his coiled tail. अंगद ने अपनी पूंछ को बड़ा कर दिया और उसको लपेट के उसके ऊपर बैठ गए. ये कहानी हम सुनते हैं. वाल्मीकि रामायण में ये कहानी नहीं है. So Angad is the son of Vali. He's a young boy. By the way, he must be younger than you guys, right? So he's maybe 16, 17, 18, but maybe as old as you guys, 18 years old. He goes to the दरबार ऑफ रावण. रावण ऊंचे सिंहासन पर बैठा हुआ है और अंगद जिस तरह से उसके साथ बात करता है. So he says, I am Wali's son and Ram's envoy. My name is Angad. You may have heard about me. And I will tell you Ram's message. So he has gone to deliver Ram's message. And it is a very forceful message. So Angad, a young boy, is talking to Ravan, the great ruler of Ravan, in his own court. Angad is talking with such confidence. He is treating him as an equal. Okay, those are Maharshi's words. now how many times we show the Ramayana in sculptures and paintings, correct? How do you show confidence in a sculpture? So this, depiction of a coiled tail and Angad sitting on top of the coiled tail so that he is at the same height as Ravan is a beautiful depiction, which correctly shows us what Maharshi Valmiki has said in words. But if we don't have access to the words, if we are only looking at the picture or the painting or the sculpture, it's a beautiful way of depicting. Now, if you know what has happened, which is the Valmiki Ramayana, you can actually appreciate the other versions as well. As long as they are true to the essence of the characters of the Valmiki Ramayana. See, Shreyansh, you were asking me earlier, do any of the retellings do any harm? So I think if the retellings are consistent with the characters of Maharshi Valmiki, then there is no problem with it, right? In fact, they generate the same interest in the Ramayana as the Valmiki Ramayana. They add to it in a way, but they must be consistent. And for us too, I think we should understand the Valmiki Ramayana, and then we'll be able to appreciate all of these. In fact, that is the very reason why I have been doing this video series and these talks. See, I'll give you a quick background on this entire effort. I was running a business till 6 or 7 years back. I happened to read the Valmiki Ramayana and I was completely blown away because it is not the Ramayana I thought I knew. And so I got out of my business and read the Valmiki Ramayana in Sanskrit and made these short format videos that if you don't have 5 years or 6 years to dedicate to this, at least you can spend 10-15 minutes watching some of these videos and understand what Maharshi Valmiki has said. Once we understand what Maharshi Valmiki has said, we can actually enjoy other versions as well.
Okay, so I think that's it for the question. And guys, if you're disappointed we haven't taken your questions, Ramayana is too big to cover in a 1.5 hour session. So I understand you must have bit more questions as well. But what we try to do is cover the true essence of Valmiki Ramayana here. Now, as we conclude this session, we are filled with gratitude for the wisdom and insights shared by Yashodeep sir. Now, through his deep understanding of the Valmiki Ramayana, he has illuminated the timeless relevance of this epic and helped us connect with the profound lessons of on dharma, leadership, and humanity. Now, Valmiki Ramayana is more than just a story. It's sort of a guide for a life, showing us how to navigate challenges with courage, wisdom, and humility. Let us carry forward all these teachings in our daily lives, striving to balance our duties with our values, just as Lord Ram exemplified. Thank you, everyone, for being part of this enlightening journey. Now, until we meet again, let's continue our quest for truth and keep drawing inspiration for the treasures of our ancient heritage. Thank you, Yashodeep sir. Thank you so much for
Thank
joining us
you.
today.
All the best to you.
Jai Shri Ram,
Thank you so
everyone.
much, sir.